Gundam.tk presents Kasi Gundam. Hey, what's up again, everybody? It's Robert184, 2 R's, 2 B's from Gundam.tk, which is GundamReviews.net, and I hope you've enjoyed my look so far at the Gundam Fix Figuration number 25 Kasi/Penelope Gundam with the Odysseus Gundam thrown in there. I've already shown you both of the figures, and now I'm just going to put all my thoughts into one place, but I also have the additional thing that, especially for this one, since I'm not that experienced reviewing GFF or Gundam toys in general, I'd love to hear a lot of what you have to say with a comment anytime down below. Now, I think the Kasi Gundam is a lot more popular than the Penelope, except I have to say the reason that I'm going to keep it like this is just because I bought this for G Generations, and in that game, like I said, Penelope is my absolute favorite, so that's what you're going to be seeing here for the verdict anyway in terms of visuals. But let me just kick things off with some of the problems. How many of these only apply to this GFF, and how many of these apply to all things? That's a question that I'm hoping people will be able to answer. But for me, a whole bunch of parts were going to fall off when you're doing this. When you're just dealing with the Kasi Gundam, the legs are going to fall off, waist skirts, you're going to have the head fall off at times. The arms, I had a whole bunch of things like that. So that was problematic, and when you combine that with the even worse problems, I'm talking about you've got some very fine parts, and this is the Kasi Gundam's head, and if I was able to zoom in with some macro here, you'd see that this has already bent the V-fin, and that's just with 1 or 2 transformations. So you're going to have to be really careful with that, and you can make it out here that there's these little points on the shields. Same issues, they're going to break off because this is a very fine toy, as opposed to the more durable models that I'm used to. In terms of a few other things, the beam rifle, especially for this one, it's bent like a banana, and so it's not going to look that attractive, which means that you're probably not going to use it when it's in Penelope mode, so I'm just going to keep that away. In terms of the overall size, that's another question I've got. Are these to scale? So if you had the Crossbone X1 Gundam Fix Figuration, how would it stack up in terms of height compared to these? Anyway, it just comes across as being too short for a 1/144th, of course, much too small for a 1/100th. And I'm just wondering if that's a problem across the line or if these are non-scale compared to each other. Anyway, how would they stack up? I'd love to hear from you. Another thing that I had an issue with is just the directions. With plastic models, you're getting ones that are just great. They've gotten a lot better over the years. You can hear me complain profusely about old ones from the 90s sometimes not being as clear. I'm looking at you, MGGPO2A. But in this case, you've got directions and they're very small. The language is, of course, written in Japanese, so some of the markings and things like that that you may come to rely on from the Gunpla manuals aren't going to be here, so you're going to have to be really careful because the pictures are just zoomed out too far. They're not in color. You're going to have to be careful, and you may have to translate some of the text if you're really stuck on what to do. Now, another issue is just the long transformation. I don't know what you think about the Master Grade Unicorn Gundam. This took a lot more time to transform. Of course, the first time is always the longest, but anyway, after that, it's not something that I intend to do too often, but it may be just enough to put you off from buying this kit and having it go back and forth too often. But for positives, I've also got to say that there's a whole bunch of them, and that's just in the form that you are getting with this 3 Gundams in 1, and they even go down to the details of having 3 different colors of feet. They did not cheap out on this kit at all. You're not going to have to, everything is the way that it should be. And if you count the flight mode, you can have 4 modes for one reasonably priced toy. And when I say reasonably priced, I mean just compared to how much stuff and how much plastic you're getting in here and how many apps there are in terms of the color. Some of these things are just pleasant surprises. I don't bother to put on the Katoki stickers, and I know that a lot of people do, and they can really make some of your kits, especially the Master Grade Unicorn, look that much better. Here it's all done for you, so if you're a lazy modeler like me, buying toys like this may be one way to go. You're going to be getting weapon options. The Kasi has its flight mode. This one, you can plug the weapons into the shield. Outside of the beam rifle not looking good, you've still got a whole bunch of things, and the overall thing just has to be the looks. I think the Kasi looks fantastic. It is one of the coolest looking Gundam designs. And the Penelope, I have to say that I love the way it looks just because of how different it is. And again, if you love something in a game, then you're probably going to like it here in physical form. So that for me is a bonus. But how does that stack up for you if you don't have the same attachment to this from having played it for hundreds of hours in an SRPG? Other little things that you're going to get these missiles, which again go back to the game. They're very, very impressive there. Little things that you don't expect, like the leg stabilizers. I don't know if it's placebo effect or not, but when you've got him down not on a base, he's actually going to stay very, very secure, and just having those little extra parts down there seem to make a difference. So the final verdict for me is going to be that this was a pleasant surprise for me, and I'm very glad that I picked it up. Now again, that depends if you've got the attachment to it or not, But in terms of toys, I have to say that I've got to give this GFF line a lot of credit, and I don't know again if this is one of the better ones or not, but the paint apps on here, 95% of them are done well. There's a few bad ones, especially on the Penelope's chin, but outside of that, the gray lining looks good, everything about it looks good. It's more posable than I expected. I'm talking about with the legs doing 90 degrees and the arms also, depending when they're weaponized or not. But the most important thing just for me is that when I have this, I actually want to have two. And if you buy something and they make you want to buy another one, then I think they've done a good job of it, because I'd love nothing more than to have a Penelope and a Cassie side by side on the shelf ready to do their eternal duel that may or may not be canon. And anyway, I think it's just fantastic that they make you, and even if you had a third one, you could do the Odysseus and the Flight Pack and the Cassie and the Penelope. So for me, the fact that you have to choose between one of them almost makes it a shame, which means in terms of whether this is a product you'd want to buy or not, I'd say that it is. However, this being not re-released like most Gundam kits means that it may put a dent in your wallet. I picked this one up used in Akihabara, and I was very happy to find it for a pretty reasonable price. They tend to be getting pricier and pricier online. But how does this stack up compared to other GFF kits? That's the real question I want to ask. There's a lot of people who are buying lots of Robot Damashi and lots of GFFs in the past. This really was Bandai's premium line in the past. Robot Damashi has taken over. I enjoyed the X3 for what it is, but it feels a lot more toyish than this one. This one just comes across as being a more complex and just detailed, thanks to the amount of details in the kit, but also just in terms of the color wraps and things like that. So where do you stand? Is this a good GFF? Is it a good toy? How does it compare to a model? And Vegeta was kind enough to mention that there's a bunch of resin kits of this, which I'd really like to look into. How about those? Because when you talk about the future, outside of this guy getting resin releases, whether they're 1/72 or whatever, third party or not, anyway, we may not have a lot of hopes for this in model form. So for the future, even though I've said no to model kits for this, we do have Sangokudens. If you want to get, you can get Penelope for one arm and Cassie for the other in one of the combining kits. 5 in 1. It looks pretty cool. Could we get a high-grade Universal Century? You always wonder about that. If we get a Nightingale, then I think our chances of getting a Penelope or a Cassie would go up. The big wild card being is that if we're ever going to get an OVA where you get to see these guys go at it, full battle style, then of course we'd start to get some model lines, but I think Bandai would have to look at this. When they decided to make Unicorn into an OVA, they said, hey, there's a million old kits that we can even do, things like the Dra C and the Dryson, and incorporating old history into that. With this, if you look at Hathaway's Flash, there's only, 4 or 5 mobile suits in the entire series. So there's not a lot of model sales. And now, is that a strike against Crossbone and Hathaway's Flash? Perhaps, but after the success of Unicorn, you wonder if we could see these, and then I can't help but wonder whether they'd get redesigned again, similar to the High New or something like that, or could we get models just the way they are? No matter what Bandai did, if they put this out in high grade or master grade, I'd buy them in a flash. Haha, pun on the name, and I wonder if other people would too. Anyway, everybody, Robert184, gundam.tk. If you've got this kit or other ones, why don't you let me know what you think of it compared to others? And what do you think of its chances of getting OVA-sized or plasticized or anything like that? Love to hear from you with a comment down below. Please hit like and subscribe if you don't want to miss any other videos. And I'll see you next time with lots more model reviews and the occasional one like this thrown in for good measure. Thanks for watching, everybody. See ya. Penelope, maybe you are the one to deliver the ultimate bright slap. You know, Unicorn, if we were to scale, I would send you to school.